It is a case of teen love that allegedly turned deadly. This couple was seen just weeks ago ready for prom.
Did you kill her?
What happened last night?
But now, the boyfriend is in custody accused of his girlfriend's murder. And as you watch his perp walk per WTAE TV, he is not the only one charged in this case.
Do you regret helping?
The twisted and shocking acts police say his mom allegedly did when she found out that her son was a potential killer. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. I want you to imagine for a moment being a parent and you find out that your child has committed a crime that potentially means you would never see them again outside of a prison. That is a position that no one would ever wish on anyone else. No one would ever want to be in that position. Because the right thing, if you're in that position, is the most difficult thing a parent could do. Turn your child in. And that's not what police in Pennsylvania say this mom did.
Why'd you help your son cover up a murder?
I did not.
This is Rachel Moser covering her face as she is led to jail in Western Pennsylvania per WTAE. And when she gets to the cruiser, it sounds like she makes a shocking admission that could be incredibly damning to her son's case. I will show you that in just a moment, but I want to talk about her son first. 18-year-old Royce Moser. It was just weeks ago that Royce went to prom. Here he is with his date, his girlfriend, the girl that he gushed over on social media, 18-year-old Karoline Heintz. Now, Karoline had a lot going for her. She was a budding college soccer star. Her name is listed on the roster for Pennsylvania Western University in California, PA, which is about an hour south of Pittsburgh. Royce and Karoline seemed inseparable from what we can see on social media. Karoline kept Royce's IG handle on her profile, so people knew that they were together. Just 13 weeks ago, for Royce's birthday, she wrote, quote, "Celebrating you is so easy. I love you." But love can change fast when you're 18 years old. Karoline was headed to college, and being an athlete in college, it's not easy. Royce was not reportedly going to the same school as Karoline. College, also, anybody who's ever had a high school relationship, it can be that fork in the road. People move on, people go in different directions. And it's unclear if that's where this relationship was, but something, according to police, was going south. So I want to get into what happened on Thursday, August 20th, in the early hours of the morning. Police say that Royce and Karoline went to a family party. Then it appears it was time for a heart-to-heart in her car outside the house.
Late last night, after a family party, her and the boyfriend get together. They're a younger couple, talking about how relationships can continue, maybe in a college setting. Somewhere that conversation probably goes a little bit south.
We have the criminal complaint in this case, and police say that Royce and Karoline are having this conversation outside his dad's house, and the conversation in some way goes south. And Royce allegedly tells Karoline when she says something he doesn't like, "I have something for you." Police say Royce then goes into the house, he grabs a large kitchen knife, and he comes back out and allegedly stabs Karoline Heintz in the chest. Police say Karoline then falls out of the car and onto the ground. Royce, this 18-year-old boy, well, he's a man because he's legally an adult, right? He had just allegedly killed his girlfriend, but he doesn't call 911, doesn't go into his house to tell people what he did. At that moment, police say he picks Karoline's body up, allegedly puts her in the back hatch of her car. Then he allegedly calls his mom. Now, this is where Rachel Moser comes into play, who is Royce's mom. According to the criminal complaint, Royce calls his mom after he allegedly kills Karoline, and he asks her to meet him to help drop a car off at the school where Karoline goes. Quote, he then admitted to her that he stabbed the victim with a large knife from his house. He then put the victim in the back hatch of the vehicle and needed her to give him a ride back. Now, according to the criminal complaint, Rachel Moser allegedly tells her son to come to her house located in Bealsville, PA. Royce told police that his mom allegedly told her son to put the car in the garage and that she would help him clean the car with disinfectant spray, and she even allegedly gave him latex gloves. Rachel allegedly had a lot more to say to law enforcement and the media as well, which, again, we're just about to talk about. but I want to get into how police came upon this case. Let's go from their perspective here. So Karoline started the night at her family's home. And according to the criminal complaint, her dad tells police that she leaves the house around 9:30. She told him that she was going to make a run to Target, then make her way back to the dorm. And she ends up swinging by the house where Royce is living, which is his dad's house, where this party apparently was going on. Police allege that they end up having this heart-to-heart. And this is where the two get into that conversation. It allegedly goes south. Royce stabs Karoline to death. So Karoline's dad knew his daughter's location because she has an Apple AirTag on her so he can see. So around midnight, her dad saw that her location was 100 Wood Street in California, Pennsylvania, and that is the address for the public library. Police say that Karoline's dad, he couldn't get in touch with his daughter, so he calls police, and then they go make the discovery inside her car of Karoline in the back hatch. And that was just about 2 o'clock in the morning. Now you wonder how much the Mosers, Royce and Rachel, if all of this is true, if they really thought things through. Did they think about Karoline potentially having an AirTag on her? And you also wonder if they thought about surveillance footage in the area. Police say when they pulled the surveillance footage, they see Royce driving Karoline's car. And they also notice that Royce was following a vehicle. And it was a car being driven by his mom. And that vehicle was also registered to his mom. And as they watch that video, they can see that both of them are wearing blue latex gloves. So there we are, as we started in the beginning, kind of putting yourself in the shoes of Rachel Moser, and you're like, what would you do in that situation? And this mom did not do, if all of this is true, the right thing. Instead, she allegedly tried to help her son cover up a murder. Police say after Rachel and Royce leave the vehicle at the library, they go back to Rachel's house, which is about 15 minutes away. And when they get to the home, Royce allegedly said that his mom told him to take a bath and a shower and to change clothes. And she allegedly took the knife, the murder weapon, and put it in the trash. Police have that murder weapon, by the way. And they also say that she threw Royce's clothes away. Now, I don't know how secretive the Mosers thought they were in this case, but police were right on their trail because they had the surveillance video. And with hours, the two of them were brought in for questioning and they were put under arrest. Here is Rachel's perp walk per WTAE. And I want you to listen to what it appears she says to media members when she is asked why she allegedly would do this.
Tell us why you're sorry.
That my son took a life.
Now that is incredibly damning to her son's case, no matter the direction it goes from here. In the criminal complaint, Rachel allegedly told investigators that her son said that he had demons who told him to hurt Karoline. He also allegedly said that he didn't know if she was dead or alive. And at no point did this mom call police, not just on her son, but even if there was a chance that Karoline was still alive. Now, as for Royce Moser, here's the WTAE footage of his perp walk. And you can see that he was very stoic as he is brought out into the police cruiser to be brought to jail. His defense potentially might be something related to mental health because he told police that in this heart-to-heart conversation with Karoline, when she said something he didn't like, quote, demons took over. We'll see how that plays in his case moving forward because he is facing very serious charges, which include homicide, abuse of a corpse, tampering with physical evidence, and obstruction of law enforcement. As for his mom, Rachel Moser, she is charged with hindering the apprehension of a fugitive, tampering with evidence, and abuse of a corpse, among a couple other charges. And when she was asked about why she was wearing those blue latex gloves, by the way, she allegedly told investigators that she was cleaning up dog droppings before, and she decided to keep the gloves on. Join us now to talk about this investigation, retired NYPD Detective David Sarney. It's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Rachel Moser, the mom, and what do you make of, I mean, clearly it's incredibly damning evidence that law enforcement believe they have on her that she helped her son try and allegedly cover up the murder of this young woman. But when you look at what she's accused of doing specifically, how does that, it clearly damages an investigation, but truly what is the damage that she's doing if all of this is true?
Well, thank you for having me. I think the damage is primarily just the act itself. Once you moved in on this case, and they were moving relatively rapidly on that was good because the initial unfortunate crime scene or where the crime took place was inside the vehicle. I don't know how much they tried to clean up on the vehicle, because apparently when they found the body, the troopers said that the body had she had grass on her, so they didn't clean off the body. They try to clean up whatever you can. It doesn't mean you're not going to find anything, because that's the thing about it's trace evidence. This was a parent who thinks they're doing the right thing by their kid. In reality, your son just stabbed to death his girlfriend of 4 months, by the way, 4 months. And you think it's okay to start trying to cover this up. You can't. If you were imagine, if the roles reversed and she was the parent, could you do that? I don't see that happening. The damage, well, all you're doing now is once you're going to now go to that residence, and then you do a search warrant on her house too to see what was thrown away. The statements made by the son are pretty damaging, because I think she tried to avert the fact that she did anything. But that's where the story from the defendant in this case, the perpetrator in this case, they're going to try to piece this together. And it's not that damaging. It was moved relatively quickly. If you could say this was about a couple of days into the scene, it might have been more difficult to do anything if that happened.
What I don't understand, and certainly it's a good thing if what's alleged here is true, that they were caught and they're going to face justice, without a doubt, is like the car where they find this young woman's body is outside of the school library, and it just seems like that's a very public place where they're going through the process of trying to literally wash his hands of what he just allegedly did. And yet the vehicle ends up being left in a very public place where police are going to be able to find it. There are cameras, there's surveillance, that plays a key role. Like, reading through the criminal complaint, it just didn't make a lot of sense as to why. And look, a lot of what criminals do I'm not trying to, help them get away with murder, but it's like, I just don't understand like how this process of we're going to try and allegedly cover all this up, and then it ends with a car being left right by a school campus.
Yeah, these things I never thought out. I always talk about incidents. You have the incident itself, which is the stabbing. It doesn't seem particularly planned, like it was an event. It seemed to be happening at that moment in time. From the time he, according to what he said, he left the car, said, "I have something for you," goes inside, gets a kitchen knife, and stabs her. Everyone usually has a plan for their incident, but the post-event, the post-incident is where people fail on the idea of trying to escape, trying to hide the body. It's impossible to get, it's very difficult to remove a body, to just have a body disappear. Given the fact of his relationship, I don't know if he knew their parents, the girl's parents, because they seem to be very conscientious. That's the reason why they're doing what parents do now. They track her phone. They have an air tag in the vehicle. So they want to make sure she's safe, because again, her first year in college, she's going to become a soccer player. She's away from home. They just want to know where she is. And that's really what comes down to it. The initial investigation starts very quickly. I think they started around 12:15 for a wellness check. And that's when they know the car's around there. And the perp here in this case, and the mother, they don't know what to do. They think if we put it there, nothing is going to happen of it. But this is where you're not talking about criminal minds here. You're not talking about real villains in this. They're perpetrators of a crime, but they didn't think this out too clearly. And I don't think any of this was thought out. They just thought the best thing they could do is, we'll clean up a little bit and then go and drop the car off where she goes to school. Everyone will know what'll happen. I mean, it's not that hard. The footprints are going to be found anyway. You can track it right back to the scene.
And like, looking at some of the things, just reading through the criminal complaint here. So you have Royce Moser. He calls his mom Rachel. He goes to her house, and he was hoping he could use disinfectant spray to clean the car. She then gave him latex gloves and told him to follow the vehicle toward the university. They left the vehicle in the parking lot, got in the car to leave. When he got back to his mom's house, and that's where they end up being arrested, or at least brought in for questioning, she has him take a bath and then a shower, and then told him to change his clothes. She took the knife, which they do have, law enforcement, and they put that in a garbage bag, and they put that outside the residence, and then she put his clothes in a washing machine. I think in like a Law and Order episode, like that's probably like the bullet points on like how to clean up after something like this. But like in reality, how much evidence is being damaged through what we're kind of listing there in the criminal complaint?
You can have some damage with the water and things, but remember, there's trace evidence. You can still find blood. how well they clean. Again, this isn't, we go to like this idea of reference. It's not Pulp Fiction. This is not Mr. Wolf trying to get rid of the body. They didn't seem to have a lot of time to do it. And that's the thing when you're talking about, and it sounds kind of grim and awful, but to remove a body and to have an apartment or location cleared of any evidence is very difficult to do because it will be found. The truth will out. And I always say that, the vehicle itself, she's in the back of the vehicle. She had they didn't clean the body off. I don't know how well they cleaned that car off. And not only that, it's also still trace that there's going to be evidence available. And that's the thing. And his statements assist in that timeline of seeing where these items were, the house. So he went back to his mom's house to take care of it. You're going to search warrant for the house. You're going to see where, the washing machine. Is there any trace evidence left in that washing machine? How well was it washed? That's the thing. You can have certain things, ammonia and all these things you can try. But again, the truth will out because, that's the thing. They try to hide something that was a heinous act and it's not going to be done. It didn't get done well because they're not good at it. And that's a positive for the investigators. They're not good at what they do.
No, it just seems, and often when we're talking about these cases, we aren't talking about, some high level criminal. And I think the reality of like someone who's out there who's able to just cover up murder after murder, like, I don't know if that person exists beyond the movies. Certainly they don't in this situation. Cause like the air tag, they didn't seem prepared for that or thought that through. The idea, I mean, you're in, an area where there's going to be surveillance cameras, that was not particularly thought through. And it's just, and I also just want to say, like, it does seem like Karoline Heintz's family, like she's off to college. She's accomplished so much. She's a soccer player. They were going to call her when she gets back. You get emotional thinking about it as a parent that it was like they were doing everything, like just making sure she's good on the first day of school. And it also seems from what state police are saying that she was about to drop this guy. Like, it just seems like they were not headed in the same direction in life. And certainly when you look at what he's accused of and his family, it kind of speaks to the quality of person, if all of this is true. When it comes to his defense, because law enforcement has said that they were outside of a house after some sort of family party at his dad's house, and they end up, they made it seem like a breakup was kind of about to go down because she's going to college, and that's what happens, right? It's often a fork in the road in relationships when people head off to school. We've all been there. But then he's saying now that demons were telling him to do it. And it seems like this mental health kind of defense is being built, and we'll see if his defense attorney would go in that direction. How do you balance, like, on one hand, and this is, may play out in court, the motive of being he's really angry that maybe she's breaking up with him and the relationship's going south, and then you have this, well, the demons were telling me to hurt my girlfriend.
But he also says, I have something for you, and leaves the vehicle. So when you talk about that, and you're going to talk about the defense, it's going to be refuted, I guarantee you, by the prosecutor, unless they can show a true psychiatric history of this kid. And I don't think there is one. This is just saying what it is. He realized he got out of the vehicle, said, I have something for you, gets out of the vehicle, goes to the home, his father's house, goes to the kitchen, grabs a knife. It's not like this is, and comes back out and then stabs her. I'm presuming she's in the driver's side. I'm presuming she drove there. And there's probably going to be some record that she told him that she was going to be over there. There's going to be some text messages also. You're going to go back in the background of their relationship anyway. You're going to talk to the father, you're going to talk to the family. And again, the family is, I can't imagine getting that call and finding out your daughter's dead, stabbed to death. And, this is the only time she's going off, and you see that it's a tragedy in that sense. And to try to lay the blame on demons is not going to fly for anybody. I can't see it working because it isn't like I saw red and I just did it. He actually had time to think about going from the car to getting the knife to going in there and stabbing her. She falls out of the car. He dumps her back. He puts her back dumps her into the back of the car. So this isn't somebody who's not able to understand what they did, because not only that, you brought your mother into it by going to her house and asking her to help you to clean up.
Well, and I know, like, the heat of passion defense, like, we'll hear about that, and that's really hard to prove, but there are examples of it where someone's so angry in the moment that, they didn't have control over what they were doing. Like, the fact that he got out of the car, goes into the house and gets a kitchen knife, and then comes back out to me, that would throw any attempt at that defense out the window.
Yeah. And he drove the car. He drove in the car that she drove to, the victim drove in, and he's sitting in her blood. That's the think about it. He's sitting in her blood and drove to her house, drove to his mom's house. So I guarantee you and this is late in the evening, so I guarantee you there's communication on phone calls that they're going to have, of calls like that. You're going to deal with the cell site locations and all of this. There might be text messages, who knows? But that's not going to fly, because if there's communication after, and they can show this communication between the mom and him while he's going to the scene, that going to her house to clean up, there's no heat of passion there. Heat of passion, what you would think about is like right then and there, you grab somebody, or all of a sudden there's a knife right there and you stab him. He thought about going to get that knife, and his statement, what he says to the troopers in that interrogation, really seals the deal. I have something for you. That's not something you would say if you're, because they're breaking up probably. I have something for you. That's not what you do. That is intent. Intend death, cause death, and that's why the homicide charge is there.
Now that you have both of them, is this something where they're obviously charged separately, but they're also in some ways the worst witness for each other? He's an adult, she's an adult. How do you, if you are a detective, and it seems like they have everything they need already within, the first 24, 48 hours of this crime happening, like, even though there's this very personal relationship, how can you as a detective kind of leverage one against the other when making sure that you get convictions on the highest level? Or even, do you even need to do that at this point, considering everything that it appears that they have?
Well, they do have evidence statements, but you have to corroborate the statements, because even though you make statements, you have to corroborate with evidence. And one of the things that people don't realize is the perp walk. The perp walk is probably one of the best things we've always used. And to understand what a perp walk is, we bring the perpetrator out, and the reporters are the ones asking questions. No Miranda necessary. And if there's a spontaneous utterance, and there was by the mother, I'm sorry, my son took a life type of thing, that's important for us. I'll take it. I love when we used to have, we arrange that when they come to set up so they can get those. And if you get a spontaneous utterance, that's helpful. And in this case with the mom, she knows her son killed somebody. So she can't say that she really didn't know, because I think she said he wasn't sure if she was dead or alive. She knew what happened, because somewhere along the line, if they were cleaning up that car, she was near that car with that girl in that car. And she's as culpable of the crime, but unfortunately she didn't commit the murder. Thereby, she's only going to get whatever the charge is going to be. Tampering with evidence in New York City or New York State, it's a misdemeanor. Tampering with a corpse, I think it's it's a lower level crime, but the murder is going to stick. How much you think your mom's going to tell on him? She didn't tell on him when it happened, and she lied in her statements. Her son was more forthcoming than her. And to say that he had a problem, a demons told him what to do it wouldn't be such a great a statement, because those statements that were given to the state troopers were pretty damning on his end. It sounded very clear. He sounded, he was lucid. He wasn't confused. He sounded very clear in those statements. And I'm going to presume they're also video recorded. I don't know in Pennsylvania, but most of the United States are recorded. So we'll see what that's going to come out of.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, with perp walks, Pennsylvania does it because you don't get access to the courtroom with cameras. I never really thought of it as kind of a tool for law enforcement as well, because, like, when you're in the media, this is really your only opportunity to get video of an individual, which certainly that tells a lot of the story. Just Rachel Moser covering her face, her son very stoic during his perp walk, but that utterance is going to play a key role. Like, if you're a defense attorney for Royce Moser, you're probably and I don't know if they've, got their long-term counsel in place yet, but you're kind of putting your hand, I'm sure, over your head just a little bit, because you're going to have to deal with that, though the evidence is really strong. How often in your career, because we've seen a couple of these cases now where you have killers, allegedly, who reach out to their mom or reach out to a parent. Like, we had one earlier this week, Jake Begani, out of the Dallas area, who's accused of killing his estranged wife. He calls his mom, and his mom is the one who calls law enforcement to say, like, hey, something's really wrong going on at this house. And, like, for her, I don't think any parent can imagine being in that type of position, having to make the decision, but it appears that she made the right one. In this case, very much the opposite. Like, in your career, like, how often in these cases, like, would you say you see parents making decisions like Rachel Moser allegedly did?
We've had it with robbery cases when there's video put out there of an incident, and they see the person who committed it. We'll get calls, or the parent will bring the kid in. it depends on the parent. It depends on how the parent responds. Do we have kids who tell their parents they commit crimes? Yeah, we do. A lot of times, and they won't say anything because we have to prove that there was some sort of cooperation on that end. Because when we have perpetrators leave the state, they must have told somebody they were leaving, or they told their family member, "Yo, I got to go. I got to cut. What happened? I did this." We would love for families, because the reality is victims need the justice. Victims need to have closure. Victims need to deal with this. I understand the relationship with your son, your daughter, whatever. But if they commit a crime, they commit a murder, to not do something to rectify by turning them in, you're just as culpable, because now, and we see it now, she's extremely culpable in this whole thing. We don't want to see that. I understand the family dynamic. I understand that. I presume they divorced, and he went to the mother, but he's at his father's house when this happened. So I don't know if the father was home. Apparently there was a party earlier. So I don't know how all this happened. And I don't know how the incident took place without anybody hearing it in that house. It's a house area. It's in the car, but somewhere along the line, something must have happened. I don't know. But parents, do it, man. I mean, I can't tell you what to do, but in this situation, this was not the right thing for her to do.
No, and it's like kind of interesting, like where, these are all very different cases I'm thinking of, but it's like the Brian Laundrie case, the Gabby Petito, like the connection that he had with his mom, Brian Koberger and his mom, and then like you see these other like cases we've been following. And it's a position no parent ever would want to be in or envy, obviously, but it's just, what do you say to the parents of Karoline who, they just wanted her daughter, their daughter to go off to college, and she's never coming home now because of allegedly what this young man did. We'll see what happens next. Very early in the investigation, though, a quick moving one. Retired NYPD Detective David Sarney. Always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks much, and stay safe.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. We're also streaming on Peacock. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.